That's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
but
that
who
little thing.
isn't?
No.
Who
I
isn't?
mean, like, it's especially prevalent in wild animals.
Yeah, right. You just have to cook it. You have to cook it correctly.
You have to cook it thoroughly at what, 350?
What's the trick to
It's
not getting?
it's trichinosis. That's the worms.
No,
They're
what's the
good.
trick?
What's
to
the trick
getting
not to get trichinosis?
Yeah.
It's heated up. Okay, enough trichinosis puns.
I'm gonna worm your way.
Nah.
Mm,
I said enough trichinosis.
give you a nice bear paw hug. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd want to eat bear, honestly.
Bear paw. I mean, again, doesn't sound like it'd have a lot of meat on it either.
I've had a bear claw.
Oh, I love a bear claw.
Oh yeah.
Those are good. But
That's
the thing with
what the log lady orders at the diner in Twin Peaks.
the thing with carnivores you have to be careful about
Is they'll eat you.
is the liver. Is toxic.
Oh yeah.
Carnivore livers are toxic.
Oh yeah, I've had shark.
I've had shark steak.
Yeah.
Those are right.
I used to eat the tamale and the lobsters, and then people said, "Don't eat that. That's really gross." I'm like, I love it. I think it's great.
Oh yeah. Oh, and shrimp. Do you eat the shells?
No, I don't eat the shells. Do you eat the shells?
Yeah.
Wow.
I
How
I
can
don't
you?
eat the tail, but I eat the
Aren't you
shells.
afraid of like choking?
No, you chew them.
No, that's.
I
Not
don't like it. I used to. but it
Salt
was
and
too
pepper
scratchy.
prawns. Salt and pepper prawns with the shell on. Crunchy goodness.
Having spent an entire summer at my uncle's Chinese restaurant, shucking shrimp, I won't ever eat another
Yeah, I don't blame you.
unshucked shrimp.
How much shrimp could a
Whole
Roger
thing of
shuck if
crap
a Roger
coming
could
back.
shuck shrimp? Well, Roger, are you ready to do this show?
Yes.
Mr. Peralta,
Let me
are you
get
ready to do
control so
this show?
I think so. Let me just grab my bear paws over here and just
Do you have your snacks ready?
have my snacks ready.
Good.
Dried, petrified bear paws.
All right, here we go.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out how you can help power the show, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, the 13th of January, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, producer Roger Chang, alongside a big follower of Nintendo as well, aren't you, Roger?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. And ready for the show, I
Yes.
can see. I think
It's,
maybe
just
it's
because. Oh no, I'm still there. I'm talking.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
What were we going to say?
Just, Nintendo did their quote airing last night.
Wow, Roger's internet just took a dump on us. He'll be back with us shortly, I'm sure. Len Peralta giggling in the background.
Yes.
In Schadenfreude at Roger's internet problem. How's it going, Len?
It's going well. It's going really, really well. Looking forward to the weekend and enjoying hearing more about the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Switch. The details are $299 arriving on March 3rd. Although, when I pre-ordered it on Best Buy, it said March 2nd. So I think it's March 3rd in Japan, which is March 2nd in the Western Hemisphere. We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. Roger's back. You're looking good, Roger.
I apologize.
No problem.
Everything seemed fine for my end, but apparently the internet is not with me today.
So what I was going to say before your internet broke up was you're a follower of Nintendo.
Yes, I am. I'm a big fan up until the Wii. I had a GameCube. I had a Super Nintendo. Although I bought that in college, so I didn't actually buy it right when it came out.
Of course, Patrick Beja, who's on the show on Tuesdays, is a big fan of Nintendo. We'll get some thoughts from him on Tuesday, but he sent us some thoughts, which we may reference during the show as well. Consumer Reports has reinstated the MacBook Pro as recommended after rerunning the battery tests in light of a software patch. And now here are some more top stories. Microsoft is buying a company called Maluuba, Maluuba. They're a Montreal and Waterloo, Canada-based company that specializes in natural language processing. You may remember last summer they had a pretty impressive demonstration of an AI that could understand reading at almost a human level. Like they could take out a word and the AI could figure out what word should have been there. Yoshua Bengio, professor of computer science and operations research at the University of Montreal, is involved in the company and will stay on as an advisor for Microsoft after the acquisition. Bengio is known for his work in deep learning and neural networks. Maluba's co-founders Sam Pasupalik and Kahir Suleiman noted that Microsoft's Azure cloud infrastructure is one of the key reasons that they're joining Microsoft. Microsoft recently formed an AI research group led by Executive Vice President Harry Shum, who said he's looking forward to working with Professor Bengio. So this is going to show up in Cortana. This is going to show up in Microsoft services, Roger.
Yeah, and what you're kind of seeing is that a lot of these big players are understanding now AI is not a nice to have; it's a must have. It's a feature that is no longer kind of relegated to kind of kind of a halo feature, but rather something that's core to anything else they want to build out. Even no matter what they want to do, whether it's self-driving cars or intelligent databases or Internet of Things, smart home integration, anything of that nature, and so. I think it's definitely a positive move for Microsoft, considering how lukewarm the response to Cortana has been up till now.
Now, why do you say that? Because as soon as you say there's a lukewarm response, a bunch of people are going to write in and say you're prejudiced. There isn't a lukewarm response.
It just doesn't. I say that
I haven't seen people particularly saying things about Cortana other than positive things myself.
No, I'm not. It's not to be a negative in so much that it's like it's bad. More so that it's. I don't think it definitely has the same mind share that Siri or I don't want to say the name.
Amazon's voice services assistant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's fair. I think lukewarm sometimes sounds more damning than you meant it there, it's not that it's a lukewarm response. It's more that Cortana is something that people may be using, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about it, where Siri's been around long enough and Apple shoved it in everyone's faces enough that everybody knows what it means. That's the joke you're going to see on a sitcom is about Siri. And Amazon Echo obviously is very ascendant. Cortana is probably right there with the Google Assistant.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it wasn't meant to be a slight that it's some inferior technology, but rather it does not have the same level of market mindshare that people, when you ask a digital assistant, I mean, Siri is going to be the one that floats up to the top.
But that's just mind share. I mean, I think the more relevant point that you're making here is that all of these companies are now in fierce competition to gain the best functional advantage. And it's still early enough days that anybody could jump out to the forefront. You see Google pouring in a ton of money into this, and Microsoft has this isn't the first acquisition they've made in this space, but this is a coup because a lot of people have wanted to work with Yoshua Bengio, and having him even just as an advisor to your staff is, it's not a guarantee of future performance, but it's a coup.
And, it's interesting because you see many of the same parallels with self-driving car technologies, whether grabbing key people, because these are the core assets that you need to build out these infrastructures. I'm really excited, to be honest, to see what shakes out in the next couple of years from this, because we could be seeing the birth of an entirely new not just computing method, but kind of an interface, the way we
we are seeing it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That is what we are following now, and it was nowhere more apparent than at the Consumer Electronics Show this year, for sure. The Guardian reported UC Berkeley security researcher Tobias Belter identified a vulnerability in WhatsApp that could allow an attacker or the company to access the content of messages. Anyone with access to a WhatsApp server can reset encryption keys and become a relay point to intercept future messages. The sender would only know of the change of keys if they have opted in to WhatsApp's show security notifications option. Several security researchers point out that this is a known issue with key verification in encrypted systems. Signal, which is the maker of the encryption system that WhatsApp uses, chooses to drop messages with unverified keys, thus preventing the attack in its own messenger app, but that will lead to occasional failed messages in innocent situations. Like if you're changing a device or a SIM card, sometimes those messages will fail. WhatsApp chooses to go ahead and send those messages to improve usability. So this is something where The Guardian is reporting it, and this researcher is reporting it as if they have found a smoking gun where Facebook can spy on you or hand over keys to the government. A lot of researchers are pointing out you'd have to keep requesting this every time. There is an option to make sure that the sender knows if keys have been reissued. And if they were to do it the way Signal did, a lot of people who don't care about end-to-end encryption would call WhatsApp buggy because of these failed messages occasionally.
And it highlights kind of the balancing act between usability and convenience versus security, right? The tighter you make something, the more secure you want to make something. A byproduct is that you make it a little more cumbersome because you want to ensure that whatever systems you have in place can't be easily circumvented. Now, the flip side is the thing you make more convenient tends to open up vulnerabilities or potential avenues for people to do some sort of hack or phishing. To kind of
and the key here,
access.
The key here is this isn't new. This is something that is a known issue, and no disrespect to the security researcher who discovered that WhatsApp works this way. I don't think he's trying to pretend like he discovered this vulnerability. I think he's trying to say, hey, we should point out that WhatsApp works this way. But I think a lot of people will make a bigger deal of it, and you're seeing a lot of headlines saying this is a backdoor. This is not a backdoor. WhatsApp didn't build in a vulnerability. WhatsApp chose, as many encryption implementers will, usability over security in this instance. It doesn't mean WhatsApp is fundamentally insecure. It just means, hey, if you're relying on WhatsApp for secure communications, you should know that this is something that you probably want to go in and turn on the notification and maybe consider using something else like Signal if you're really worried about security. WhatsApp is erring on the side of usability over security in this instance. It is not something that is going to affect your daily life very often. Even if, and The Verge has a great article, even if the government wanted to use this to subpoena something, they would only be able to get one message at a time, and they'd have to keep requesting over and over and over again. It's not a very efficient way to conduct surveillance.
I will say that it does help. I shouldn't say help, but it's good to see that things like this are taking a little more interest among people, because granted, you're right, it's not a backdoor, it's not really a security flaw, but the fact that people are conscious of it to begin with, I think, is a generally positive sign that people want to be taking a careful look at whatever applications they use.
Obviously, famously, Brazil has been in constant conflict with WhatsApp over access to messages and that sort of thing. And again, this Verge article that was written by Russell Brandom addresses that point and says, again, the legal fight with the Brazilian government would be difficult absent some kind of systematic change to the way WhatsApp servers behave. If WhatsApp were to leverage this bug to fulfill lawful access demands, the company would have to implement the attack continually on every user in the country, which would be extremely noisy and extremely visible.
Yes. It's I have nothing to add.
I'm just hoping that people get, like, it's easy to suspect something, but you should know what's going on. You shouldn't minimize that, hey, you know what? Somebody could do this. So you want to make sure, if you're concerned about that sort of thing, that you go into your security settings and you turn on the security notification. And you should know that if you really want to make sure that your communications are 100% safe, not 99.999% safe, then you probably want to use a different app. That's all. Yeah. WhatsApp isn't meant for that. They're over secure as it is for their purposes.
And honestly, that goes beyond WhatsApp and Signal. Is that if you're really concerned about security, understand the platform that you're using, whatever app or service, and do know where it might be lax or it might be vulnerable, because those are things you want to be careful about, right?
Yes, absolutely. A U.S. federal appeals court in San Francisco ruled Thursday that consumers have standing to pursue a class action lawsuit against Apple as direct purchasers of apps. The complaint, filed in 2011, alleges that Apple violates the U.S. antitrust law by prohibiting apps from outside the Apple App Store. The case has only gained the right to pursue class action status. It has not been granted class action status. The fight was over whether they could even apply for that status. Apple had convinced a lower court to follow a 1977 Supreme Court ruling. That ruling bars consumers from recovering damages from a company if it doesn't directly sell the products to consumers. So Apple was saying, we don't sell apps. The developers sell apps, so you can't get class action status against us. But the appeals court ruled that no, if you're an iPhone user, you are a direct consumer of content from Apple's App Store, and therefore you could make a case to sue Apple. So they probably will be able to get class action status. If they are able to get class action status, they still would have to win a case against it. But this is going to drag on for a little while longer.
Now, the bigger question for me is the knockoff effect on other vertically integrated platforms. Like, would Google Play Store fall under similar kind of a similar ruling? And not to say that it has, but like say there is a class action lawsuit that is allowed to proceed with Apple, and it wins against Apple. I mean, will this mean that Google will be the next?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is Google does not prohibit third-party app stores. And you can install the Amazon App Store on your Android device, even the Google-approved Android devices. So Google has an advantage over Apple here. Apple says, no, you can't have any other app store. You can't sideload any apps. And Android says, sure, you can sideload apps if you want to. I mean, we're going to make you agree to the security implications of that before you do. But yeah, you're allowed to do it.
Overall, I think it's actually kind of a positive step, and I think it is, a win for the consumer in so much that, hey, considering all the haranguing and teeth gnashing people were doing over Microsoft Windows and like, oh, Internet Explorer and everything else, I think it's very interesting in how incredibly it's a bit of a wheel in the way that for the longest time, having any system that was vertically integrated was always considered to be a negative, right? Because it was anti-competitive. Think back to the 60s when movie studios actually owned the theaters that their movies played in, right? That was like, oh, you can only play Warner Brothers movies in here, nothing else. And you kind of saw that come back with video games, right? Because you couldn't play a Nintendo approved cartridge in a Nintendo entertainment system, right? Or you couldn't get a Sony PlayStation approved game running off on a PlayStation. So I'm really interested because I honestly believe this will have a wider impact beyond just Apple's App Store and their particular case.
It
You don't
may.
think so?
I doubt it. Because really, it's doubtful whether you can convict Apple of antitrust when they're saying, hey, we have a device and we let lots of other people make software for it. Like, to me, that looks like an open system. It's way more open than, like you just said, the Nintendo system where they're like, well, only our cartridges can be used on it. So I think there's a tall order to convince a judge. However, should they convince a judge, it will be interesting to see where this would be applicable. And it really depends on how the judge frames the decision. Because again, there aren't a whole lot of other closed vertical operating systems out there. And the ones that are out there aren't exactly in the same position as Apple, sort of straddling the line between a more open system like Windows or Android and seriously closed systems like embedded systems in your car or your medical devices.
One to watch.
Snapchat said Thursday it's rolling out a redesign, a search bar will show up at the top of the chat, camera, and stories screens. That'll let you search for your friends, find shortcuts to other parts of the app, do some chats right from there. You can also now access your profile from a Bitmoji that'll appear in the upper left corner of any section, and a new section called Our Story will show up in the stories list that will take contributions globally. Users who are part of the beta program on Android should be able to get the redesign now. It's rolling out today, with other Android and iOS users getting it soon.
As a non-user of Snapchat, this looks very interesting. I mean, really, I mean, like, how many stories how many news stories have we done on Snapchat over the past couple of weeks? Because it seems like there's constantly something happen. I'm sorry. First of all, I'm going to apologize to everyone. I'm working on 4 hours of sleep.
So what do you? You're just say we've been covering Snapchat a lot?
No. I'm just saying it's like there seems to be a lot of recent developments in Snapchat. And
I don't know if there are more recent developments in Snapchat, or Snapchat is bubbling up to the top of the places that I look for news because it's so popular. I mean, you could say the same thing about Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, etc.
I definitely would say the same thing for all of this.
Yeah, and it's because, people say, why do you cover Apple so much? Because they're very popular and people use their products, and people who use Apple products used to complain that we covered Microsoft too much back in the day. So, we are going to look at the things that are bubbling up to the top of our lists, and we only have so much time. So we try to spread things out as much as possible. But if we weren't covering Snapchat, we'd be leaving out an important segment of the market.
Oh no, I'm totally not.
Because Snapchat, even if you don't use it, is being used by a lot of people these days.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I think it's important. What I'm saying is that, like, it just seemed like Snapchat is going through a lot of I apologize. Through a lot of recent. Is it me, or have they been adding a bunch of new features over the past?
They have been changing things. You're not wrong. And
the reason I bring that up, I'm wondering. I mean, are they do they feel that they're slipping behind? Are they?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the changes have anything to do with that. I think these changes are the sign of a fast developing platform, the way Facebook was constantly changing things when it was growing very fast. They're trying to keep up with the demands of a growing audience. And I think what you bring up is very astute, because what it's pointing out is they are trying to make their interface easier to use. For the longest time, it was, oh, come on, you old people, you can't figure out Snapchat. And they're finally adapting to an audience that says, no, I can't figure out Snapchat. I don't understand how this works. And saying, yeah, we want to get even more users in here. So let's modify this design. In that respect, I think you're absolutely right that it's a significant moment for Snapchat in design.
And to be honest, one of the things about Snapchat for the longest time for me was it was a little obtuse for me to use. And as they redesign it, it does make it more compelling, especially for someone who's coming from it this late in the game, which makes it, I think, a very good direction for them especially if that's what they want. They want to broaden out their audience and potential revenue streams.
The Information's Amir Efrati obtained information that Lyft, the ride-hailing company, lost $600 million in 2016 while generating $700 million in revenue. Now, that may sound like not a lot of revenue and a lot of loss, but for comparison, Uber lost more than $800 million in Q3. So this is Lyft's entire year compared to Uber's 1 quarter. And of course, Uber makes a lot more revenue too. Revenue is rising for Lyft, though. The Wall Street Journal had previously reported that in 2015, Lyft posted revenue of $200 million. So that's up to $700 million. That's a hockey stick-like gain. And they lost $360 million in 2015. So it's leaked information, but it's good news for Lyft. Even though they're far behind Uber, they're headed in the right direction.
And yeah, I mean, like, here's a serious question: Is there any previous model that any of these ride-sharing services are using to predict, their future profitability? For example, when you start a new cable network, typically the rule of thumb is you get anywhere between 5 and 10 years before you can run fully profitable and you're no longer paying back debts from the loans and stuff that you got to start the operation. Is there a roadmap like that, or are they, because they're so new, they're basically kind of the pioneers in this, and so they're figuring how things will shake out over the course of their operation. I mean, it's great. I mean, they lost 600 million, but they gained 700. So there's still 100 million in the black.
No, that's not profit. They actually lost 600 million because their expenses were 600 million more than the 700 million in revenue they generated. Yeah,
but I mean, that's it. It's if as long as it trends in a positive direction. I think part of it is that I think I'm not very well versed on exactly how their profit loss model will work.
It's a fair question. Like at what point are these companies expecting to turn a profit?
Exactly.
And when did they need? I mean, there is no question that they need to turn a profit at some point to please their investors. And I think it's still probably a couple of years down the road. And this, it's easy to poke fun and say, hey, I wish I could run a business and lose millions of dollars and be considered a success. But that's the way business works at the beginning, which is you are going to lose money for the first few years. But if you have a solid business plan, that will turn around and you'll make more money than you lost and satisfy investors. Otherwise, investors wouldn't put their money into any of these companies.
And so that's why you call it an investment.
Yeah. And what Roger's saying is, at what point does that profitability need to turn around and they need to start making this money back? It's getting closer. But it's still a couple of years off. And that has been a question particularly about Lyft is do they have enough runway to succeed, especially when Uber seems to have such deep pockets that they can lose $1 billion in a year and just keep charging ahead.
Yes. That's totally what I wanted to say, and you said it so much more succinctly.
European members of parliament have called for the adoption of comprehensive rules on how humans and robots interact. A kill switch to shut down all functions is recommended, and users should be able to use robots, quote, without risk or fear of physical or psychological harm. A European Agency for Robotics and AI is recommended, and designers may be required to register their robots and provide access to source code in case of accidents. It recommends liability be lower for another party if a robot has higher autonomy. So the higher the autonomy, the lower the liability of the other person, and higher liability for creators of robots the longer they spend to educate a robot. The report also raises the question of whether robots should be considered electronic persons and whether basic incomes should be provided by governments as robots take over more labor. This is a pretty wide-ranging report here.
It is very broad, and I think it's fascinating that we're at this stage where a government body or legislatures, or at least the members of the European Parliament, are thinking about it in that way, right? Because we still think of robots as relatively dumb devices, right? Whether they're helping with auto manufacturing or they're helping you with delivering pills in a hospital. The fact that they're at this stage, I think it gives credence that there's a number of people that feel that automation and robotics are coming to the point where you need this sort of legislation. I think it's good that they're starting out that way. There's still a lot of questions that remain to be answered. For example, the liability issues for people who instruct or
what do you think of that? The idea that if I spend a lot of time training an AI that is inside a robot, I am increasing my liability for the actions of that robot.
But like, why stop at a robot? Why not students? Why not human students that you teach?
No, but that's solipsistic because we're not talking about humans. We're saying I've made a thing and this thing can operate on its own and it's not a human. We have rules for humans. Yeah. We've worked through that. But with a thing, is it the person who made the thing that's responsible, or is it the person who uses the thing that's responsible? And what this is saying is if you have trained the thing to think, then you start to bear more responsibility because we're not going to give responsibility to the thing itself.
I honestly, that's a head scratcher. And I honestly feel like, do you treat it as an appliance? Like, for example, if there's, the manufacturer of a toaster that, catches fire and burns your house down, are they liable for that fire? And we have rules covering that. But now that you're dealing with software, and this is kind of the big kind of fuzzy area. It's the unknown. Is that with software? I mean, where do you draw the line? Because we all know software is imperfect. That's why we have updates and things to it, right? It doesn't ship out 100% minted, going to work the way it's supposed to all the time, every time. I don't know. It's kind of scary, to be honest. If I was developing an AI, it's like, hey, dude, you're going to be responsible for this AI when someone else buys it and uses it at their home, and it tells them to drive off a road that no longer exists.
And I think that's where it gets interesting, right? Sure, if it's an appliance and it causes a fire, the maker of the appliance has some liabilities if it was malfunctioning. If, however, someone uses a knife and cuts someone, the maker of the knife is not liable for that. Everyone knew it was a knife and it was sharp, and it's the person who used the knife that's responsible. However, if I have an AI and I say, hey, AI, go take care of that guy across the street, and the AI goes over across the street and eliminates the guy, is it me who's told him to do it? Or is it the person who trained the AI who should have trained the AI not to do that?
And it might be. It does force the issue of whether or not you consider them persons or electronic persons, quote unquote. I mean, we don't do that for animals. I know some countries like Spain and I think New Zealand have recognized the great apes as equal, having quote unquote human rights.
It's pretty rare, though.
But that's what I'm saying. Like those are the exceptional cases that prove the rule that no one does it. There's a lot of stuff there, and I think it's one of those things that's great that it's being talked about. It's definitely one of those things you want to go rush headlong, head straight in without clearly defining a lot of these issues, because there are many, they overlap, and they're not as clear as you think. For example,
and this report is not saying, let's pass all these rules right now. It's saying, we think this is a good framework to discuss the rules.
No, I think that's good. It's a totally positive development, and I hope that other governmental bodies around the world also take similar action, because it's coming a lot quicker than people realize. It's not just a future.
Yeah. And many of them are. To get all the tech headlines each day in less than 10 minutes, subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. All right, as we mentioned, the Nintendo Switch announced yesterday, arriving March 3rd or March 2nd for $299. You get a console with 32 gigs of memory. One bundle includes 2 gray Joy-Con controllers. Those are the controllers that slide onto the side of the screen or slide onto a dock where you can use it like a normal controller when the screen from the Switch is in its dock. There's another version that comes with 1 red and 1 blue controller. That's the neon set. So one side is blue, one side is red. Switch can be played in 3 modes. TV mode, which means it's seated in the dock and games are played while looking at the TV. Handheld mode, where you play it like a standard portable system. And tabletop mode, where players can throw back the tablet's kickstand and rest it on a table, and then detach the controllers for some solo or multiplayer action. Features a 6.2-inch 720p 1280 by 720 multi-touch display that, when docked, can output at 1080p, runs a custom NVIDIA Tegra processor, has a micro SD card slot if you need more than the 32 gigs that are in there, and games will ship on game cards. Nintendo claims between 2.5 and 6 hours of battery life for the console when undocked, and it charges over USB-C. It can connect up to 8 switches for LAN play over 802.11ac Wi-Fi, and also can connect to Ethernet with an adapter to the dock. Nintendo also announced an online service for the Switch that launches for free, but will become a paid service in the fall, and includes access to 1 free NES, SNES game each month, and at the end of the month, your access to that game goes away unless you buy it. And the other big news was that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild will also launch on March 3rd, along with the game. So, Roger, how did you think? I mean, we got some hardware specifics, but I know on Twitter yesterday you were complaining that they weren't giving you enough specs. Is the NVIDIA Tegra 720p screen, that's not enough for you, huh?
No, I mean, it's one of those spec war things that gaming nerds really get into, and the general audience are like, well, as long as it plays games. But it's interesting that if you actually watched the announcement, they focused heavily on the controllers, like heavily, and it does, at least to me, seem like they are focusing on the very interactive, or rather the the interface aspect of the player to the machine that made the Wii so popular, and that they tried to replicate with the Wii U with a lot less success. And that, they obviously aren't going to be able to compete with the PS4 or the Xbox One on graphics prowess, and they really didn't reveal too much about their online strategy, other than it's going to be free initially, then it's going to be a paid for service. A lot of question marks. So I think they really wanted to kind of cement the differentiation of their product, which is, hey, look, we got these new controllers that work more than just pressing buttons and moving the knobs. You can use it like you would with the old Wii controller in space. For example, they were showing a Punch-Out boxing game that used that, and you could tilt the controllers and you could punch. They also feature IR and as well as motion sensitive receiver on or sensor on one, and then the IR sensor on the other stick. The other thing that I also noticed was they featured heavily, at least with the games, on Japanese RPGs, which tells me that they want to cement their market in Japan. Like with the game players, they want to make sure that they have that home audience locked in before they move out. Because the two games they announced from Western partners in the third party bit was Skyrim, which is a port of a game that's been out for 3-4 years.
For a while, yeah.
And then FIFA, which is a very safe bet for EA, right? FIFA is a
although
game
they haven't brought FIFA to a Nintendo.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying though. But it's a game that's they know is popular in other systems.
Sure.
And so they're bringing over something that it's like, hey, it's a pretty safe bet, right? They're not going to do something risky with a new console on a launch platform.
Let's get to the price. For the same price as you can get an Xbox or a PlayStation. Now, granted, not the Xbox One S and not the 4K version of the PlayStation 4, the Pro, but you can get a more powerful console for the same price. It seemed like what they were trying to do also by showing all those controllers is to say, hey, we are more fun. We can do things you can't do with those other consoles. So folks who aren't tied to particular titles, you're going to have a lot more fun. They kept talking about smiles and fun and joy, and that's why it's called the Joy-Con. And it felt like 1-2 Switch, which is the other launch title that they announced, made by Nintendo, is their Wii Sports, where you can use the Joy-Cons without even looking at a screen to do things like have a shooting a quick draw match with one another and things like that.
I mean, it's interesting. Ever since post SNES world, Nintendo really hasn't been able to keep up with Sony and Microsoft, or even Sega at some point, on the graphics portion, power processing portion of their device, and so they're going with the strong point, the one that they know worked with the Wii, less so with the Wii U, of course, but also the portable aspect that they had with the DS and the 3DS. And so, at the beginning, they mentioned that they took all those aspects of all their game
they
consoles.
made a long argument that all the best things from every Nintendo that's ever existed are here in the Nintendo Switch.
And they could definitely be right. They could definitely have, again, found the magic sauce that makes playing games, because they realize, at least for them, what made it so fun was people were playing with other people next to them. And so
the thing about the Wii, though, is it was significantly cheaper than the other consoles. Yeah. So you could easily pick one up in addition to your Xbox 360 back in the day. Granted, the Xboxes and PlayStations aren't as expensive, so maybe that helps, but this is now on par in price to those other consoles. It's not a cheap add-on.
And that's that's kind of the head scratchers. Like, for the longest time, Nintendo has said they will not take they will not lose money on the hardware they sell. I mean, will they have to at this point in the game in order to get their market share, to say, okay, we're going to bite the bullet. No longer are we just going to break even or make a little money on it. We'll actually take a loss just to get these systems out there, so we'll have an installed base that we can sell our games into.
Yeah,
And that,
well, in order to do that, you have to release games. That's the other problem. There's only 2 games they announced at launch. All the other third-party games coming later this year, and even Mario Odyssey isn't coming to the holidays.
so they must feel that Zelda will be. I'm not saying they're right, but they're banking that Zelda will be the golden ticket that gets people.
And it's a huge ticket.
Yeah, it definitely is a ticket, but is it the big enough ticket for people to spend the money and then hopefully wait? Because people have been burned with the Wii U, waiting for titles they were hoping would come down the pipeline. They weren't promised, but they were anticipating stuff that never materialized. Will they do it again? Will they say, okay, Wii U, we can understand that didn't work out as well as we wanted to, but we'll go to the Switch. We love Zelda. We're going to play the heck out of it. And at the end of the year, we know there's going to be a Super Mario game waiting for us.
I've seen a lot of people speculate that Nintendo would drop the price once Mario comes out at the holidays.
I wouldn't say, depends on what you mean by drop. I can see them bundling it for the same price.
But not an actual price drop.
Because will they? I mean, it's that short. That's a short period of time to drop your price, right?
Yeah. The strategy could be the prices of these components are going down, that we could still be break even on the hardware or profitable on the hardware and charge a lower price. So let's go to the upper end of our range for launch and get the devoted Nintendo fans off cycle, out of the holiday shopping season, and then once we get closer to the holidays, we'll have more titles. We'll have Zelda and Mario, and the people who aren't as devoted Nintendo fans, who don't have to buy the new console the minute it comes out, we can drop the price and still make money out.
I mean, didn't Microsoft do something similar where they didn't drop the price, but they started bundling games with the console? So in effect, it was a price drop without saying it was a price drop.
Yeah.
And so it would be a way to save face without necessarily souring the customer on their particular.
I don't think they care about saving face, but it would stop people from saying, hey, wait a minute, I got ripped off because I bought the Nintendo at $299 and now it's $199. If you're still selling at $299, but you're just bundling in Mario. Yeah. It helps make that argument a little.
It definitely does sweeten the pot. The biggest problem is there's so many vague question marks about future titles other than the Japanese RPGs and Skyrim and the what was it, there's 2-in-1 Switch, or Switch 2-in-1 Switch 1 Switch, and the Splatoon 2, which were all great, but I mean there just didn't seem to be enough on the plate to satisfy. Okay, those are cool.
Not yet. Maybe there'll be more announcements coming, but you think you'd want to make sure that those announcements were in your big March 3rd unveiling as well. So,
and the thing is, they're coming from a point of they're coming from behind, and so you would think they would want to up their game to kind of really go in with a bang and say, hey, listen up, we're going to get all these titles.
I'm sure they did want to do that. The question is why they didn't, and I'm not sure that either one of us have an answer, but they didn't.
No, they didn't.
So now we have to figure out, okay, 2 things. One, is this going to be a success from the commentator point of view, right? Are we going to see people buying this? I think we'll see more people buying this than a lot of people think, because at $299, it's still not ridiculously expensive, and it looks really fun. It's a mobile device and a home device, and that is something we haven't seen before, and a lot of people are going to want it for that. A lot of people, like you say, are going to want it for Zelda, and they're going to eventually want it for Mario. It will probably be better sales than the Wii U, is my guess, because it makes more sense. That said, is it something that we would recommend buying? How many of those people? If now thinking about it from the consumer side, as the person who wants to buy it, should you buy one of these? And that's where that launch title deficit becomes a problem.
And you know what? It's not even just launch titles. It's the fact that they really haven't clearly detailed.
No, you're right.
They're online.
If they had a few launch titles, but you're like, oh, but there'll be dozens by the time October rolls around, that would be different. But that still isn't the case.
That there isn't anything to whet the appetites of people who are on the fence. Nintendo loyalists and fans.
And that was a big problem with the Wii U too.
Well, and, honestly, the other thing is, like, what exactly is their online strategy? I mean, we know they have one, but what exactly is it?
I think more details to come means that they haven't quite put the infrastructure in place.
Well, they either haven't the infrastructure or they haven't had all the deals that they want signed in place.
Because that can make up for a lot if suddenly they're like, not only will you get one classic SNES game accessed a month, not even getting to keep like you do with Xbox and Sony, but you'll also get this amazing environment and access to these games. Like, there kind of has to be another announcement there if that's going to be worth paying for ever.
And you know what? Nintendo does not have a good track record for online interaction, and
all of this said, I really like the form. I think they've definitely come up with one of the best console forms that I've seen in a long time. Not for hardcore players by any stretch. That's Xbox and Sony's province and always has been. But this ability to do some motion tracking, not even have to look at the screen, pull the screen off, keep playing the game, take it with you. The opportunities it gives you are pretty amazing. And that's why I think we're focusing so much on the game lineup, is because they're sort of blowing a great platform here if they don't bring the games.
And it's very telling that they went with a device, or they designed the device purposely to be both mobile as well as a sit on the couch in front of the TV device, because for the longest line, having the two lines, having a portable and having their home console line has served Nintendo super well. But there came a point where with the home console sales not bringing as much money, they had to rely more on the handheld, which was good until the 3DS wasn't bringing in the expected amount of money. Now, it's not to say that Nintendo is hurting for cash. I mean, there's sitting a huge pile of it. But it does at least signify that there's a shift in how they view that landscape. It's no longer two separate tracks. It's now one, and it could help them because now they don't have to split development, right? They don't have to make you're doing this mobile game.
I would believe that if we were seeing a bunch more titles.
Well, and you know what, that could come down straight to just the way their PR was handled. Right, they might actually have this stuff,
but they just weren't ready to announce them,
or they just want to have to make sure that the polish is there before they release it. But overall, it's just a mixed bag, and it seems, at least what they detailed there, outside of the Zelda, which I super want, and the actual console itself which is really cool. It's like, well, as a consumer, I won't necessarily put a pre-order in because I'm not one of those people that is a Nintendo fan enough to put my money down. I'm one of those people that buys to tell you how big of a nerd I am, I actually bought a GameCube because I wanted to play Rogue Squadron, because that was a franchise I super loved, and I bought a GameCube for that reason. But there wasn't just enough games follow on after that to keep me on that system. And I think they definitely have a huge amount of work ahead of them to kind of whack through that. I mean, Nintendo and Nintendo, Microsoft and Sony have already done a lot of the groundwork for their online strategies, and it's working well for both of them in their respective markets, although more so for Sony. And I'm curious to see if Nintendo has an ace up their sleeve they haven't announced yet because they want to make sure everything's right before they pull the trigger on it, or if they just with kind of they
don't know where they're going with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically because they've lost a key figure in the organization.
Yeah.
So
well, we will see. Thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Quick couple of messages here regarding the topic of smartphones and assistants responding to your voice. Mohan writes, just wanted to touch on that topic. My first generation Moto X, which is not being used anymore, but it is my backup phone, only turns on when I say the Google Now trigger phrase, and my Galaxy S6 only responds to me when I say the trigger phrase. My wife's S6 Edge responds to me and her, and we both have input our voices to it, but will not activate for anyone else. And then Eddie Regassa tweeted to us that you can set Siri to recognize only your voice. I have set it up that way, and it does not go off unless it's my voice. If you don't remember setting it up, go into settings, choose Siri, and turn on or turn off and then on allow Hey Siri to trigger the training again. So it's there. It's there in phones already for Google and for Apple. Come on, Amazon. Just bring that along. Make a firmware update. Do it. And I just set off my phone doing that. All right. Thank you, Roger Chang, for joining us. Of course, what is there anything to let folks know about before we move along?
Yeah, if you want to follow me at Jolly Roger. Yes.
On Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter.
Go check it out. Len Peralta. I mean, finally, we handed you a very illustratable topic.
That's pretty exciting about this. Yeah, I don't know what to think about the Switch. I'm getting to the age in my life where I am not really into video games anymore, although I really want to be. So, if someone buys it, I'll play it. I don't know if I'm going to run out and get it. But here's the one thing you guys didn't mention in the show, which was Super Mario Odyssey. The name of the city is New Donk City. And the image here I've drawn, which I think is great, by the way, New Donk City. Although,
what's not to love?
Although Link is not as happy. He says, yeah, it's cool, meaning the Switch, but just please don't tell me they've added levels called Donklahoma and Orlandonk. Yes. So, I actually hope that happens.
It's not easy to turn Hyrule into Donk, so I think he's safe.
You know what? Maybe it's a creature. Maybe they have, Donkules or something like that. Who knows?
Donkules. Donkules takes New Donk City.
That's right. It's the first time I've been able to draw Mario, I think, in one of these, and
Nice.
And also a little fun little image of Link as well, which is right now up in my online store. So if you go to lenperaltstore.com, check it out. You can download it right now. You can get it and purchase it, download it. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, it's the month-long commission. I'm doing commissions for a month. They're right on the front page. You can kind of take a look at them. I'm doing a bunch of black and white original drawings as well as stuff for Valentine's Day. So it's stuff to check out and plenty of time to do it. So go out there and get something, support original art.
Thank you, Len. Thanks to everybody who supports our show as well at dailytechnewsshow.com/support. Big thanks to everyone who supports us like Louis St. Amour, Roger Gregory, Matt Phillips. Props to Jason and Patreon John, who both upped their pledges at patreon.com/DTNS. Every single one of you in the audience working together is what makes this show possible. We cannot thank you enough. Patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. It's a holiday Monday in the United States, so we'll have headlines for you that day and be back with Patrick Beja on Tuesday. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
I just noticed you didn't go for the eyes on Mario's hat.
Oh
Was that a considered choice?
No, you know what? I went old school with Mario.
All right.
I should have done the eyes though.
No, I'm not saying you should have. I was curious if that was.
No, that's I saw that and I was like, I don't know.
It's weird. We didn't talk about it in the show, but that's weird.
It is kind of weird. That's why I was sort of like, is that a thing? There are a lot of things that I wasn't really sure about the Switch. The hat thing was one of them. This New Donk City. I didn't know if people loved it
The
or
New
hated
Donk
it.
City, I hadn't even noticed. That's hilarious.
It's New Donk City, man. That's what it's called. And then the whole humans along with Mario. There was this huge thing online about, is Mario human or not? If so, why are the humans taller than him?
Well,
why are they all wearing
maybe
50s?
he's just a little person.
He comes from a different world, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
Does he? I thought he was from Brooklyn, a plumber from Brooklyn.
Oh, was he? I thought he.
Different Brooklyn?
New Donk City, man. Maybe
He's
that's
from New
people
Donk
in the
City.
New Donk City or in the 50s. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Brooklyn that's next to New Donk City. It's a borough of New Donk City.
I want to go to New Donk City. Take me
Who
down
doesn't?
in New Donk City where I'm at.
Speaking of sassy,
Go through
let's
some
do
of your favorite names, but I'm pretty sure I know which one I'm going to use.
Nintendo's last Switch effort.
Mm.
That's the one I'm pretty sure.
That's the one I'm leaning toward. Will people switch back to Nintendo was my second.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there was only two Switch for my blood.
To switch for that's pretty good.
Switch or ditch. Well, you can't ditch it because it hasn't been out yet to ditch it.
WhatsApp with your backdoor.
That's pretty
Even
funny.
though it's not a backdoor.
How about WhatsApp with
A more slowly rising loss lifts all boats.
Oh,
Well done.
But honestly, Nintendo's last Switch effort.
Yeah. No, it's running away with the vote at showbot.tv and also it's just really good.
It is. It could either sink or swim the company. We'll see.
By the way, I don't know if we make this clear when we say you can download the digital version of LensArt and print it or download it and have it right now. Like literally right now, if you're watching this live, you can buy it, download it, and if you have a color printer, print it. Darren has done this on the show live before.
It's pretty amazing. It's about as close to actually being here with me doing it and me drawing something for you. So
it's like Len just jumps down a green pipe and shows up in your house.
And then there's that weird
eats a
sound.
mushroom and becomes your size.
And then there's weird bear paws in there too with the mushroom.
No bear paws.
I'm full.
Yeah, same
none
here.
for me, thanks.
I wish they didn't do a separate event. I mean, I know that why they want to, but just
you went from bear paws to something else. Where'd you go?
Oh no, for Legend of Zelda. Was it the Wild?
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild. I can't remember anything. My head's not working.
You need some sleep, man.
I'm so sorry. Apologize to everyone.
Stop apologizing. You're fine.
You're apologizing. What are you, Canadian? Jeez.
Speaking of which, Jen Cutter was supposed to join us today, and then she got the con crud without even going to the con. So I hope she feels better soon.
That's no good.
She was deathly ill. She responded. She got back to me. I was like,
I hope she feels better.
But she is a Nintendo nut. She just loves it.
A nut.
And that's the thing is, I really didn't like Nintendo during the NES days, mainly because I didn't have a game console. So it wasn't really, not that I didn't like it, but I just wasn't like, ooh, that's the best thing ever. It wasn't until I got a Super Nintendo that I realized, hey, this stuff is pretty sweet. But it's interesting because Nintendo has had such a impact on not just video gaming, but a lot of people's childhoods, that it is pretty keen that people are still so loyal to that brand, despite the missteps with the Wii U and some other things.
Honestly, the Wii U is the only big. People have talked about all kinds of missteps with Nintendo that I'm like, okay, you may not have liked that, but I'm not sure it was a misstep. The Nintendo Wii, I see a lot of people just saying like, yeah, something that people bought and put in a closet and never used. What a failure. I'm like, what a multi-million-dollar failure. Like,
right.
And still has positive feelings for a lot of people. So just because you didn't like it doesn't mean it was a failure. On the other hand, I think the Nintendo Wii U was demonstrably a failure. Like they just didn't sell them. And nobody understood the advantage to buying one.
Well, yeah. I think it's funny because I see, if you look at their hardware line, you can see how the Wii U was kind of that bridging, like the missing link between the Wii U and the Switch. Link to the Switch.
Yeah, the Wii U, it didn't make any sense because you could get a PS4 or an Xbox One for around the same amount of money and get a better, better looking games.
Much better, yeah,
better looking games. And the other thing too is I wasn't made. I mean, Nintendo's always been kid friendly, but that device, it just seemed like it was going to break. I would not put that into my hands of a 4-year-old, to play with, and there's that to worry about because it's super expensive to replace. It's not just like getting a Wii U remote, used. It's an actual screen and stuff like that.
They really learned from that experience, and you can see it, right? The actual unit is part tablet with the dock, but the actual controllers are
they're like they're like
and,
little iPads.
Yeah, and but the controllers, once you pop them off, they're just like the Wii U controllers, right? They come with the straps.
Yep.
Except that you get the ability to take each other half and give the other half to someone else, so you can play head to head on whatever game that supports that feature.
Yeah, and then I ended up playing that new Mario app over the holidays too, and
Mario Run.
Yeah, I was really disappointed by that.
Yeah, I was disappointed in that myself.
I mean, you just had to pay to get to the other worlds. There was no like free option that if you just wanted to grind.
We talked a lot about the fact that a lot of it was perception. If you'd just paid $10 from the beginning, you would have thought, oh yeah, okay. So there's no in-app purchases and I pay $10. But
Right.
because they gave it to you free,
Yeah.
you're like, oh wow, $10 is a lot because you're in a
Right.
different mindset at that
Well,
point.
no, you really. I mean, I play a bunch of games that offer in-app purchases, and I've been playing them for months and months and months, just because you get to grind and it's something to do. And that's what I was kind of expecting with that. I'd probably add it to my list of daily little games to play if I didn't have to pay to play the worlds. I'm like, what's the point? So,
But you only pay once. And then you play the rest of the worlds. It's just a weird way of doing it. Because
it is.
Because I paid and now I'm playing the worlds and I'm like, and I still have to earn tickets and things. And it's like, why isn't this a free to play?
It's because they don't understand. They don't have experience in that market. Or
I don't know if it's that because they didn't design this. They contracted someone to design this who does have experience in that. So
I think maybe
feel
it
like
was
it's
a
more
brief thing,
indecision.
But
they wanted this to be freemium at first and designed it that way and then changed their mind.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
Somebody the higher up saw it and said, well, how does this make any money for us? And then they got to add that in. It's like part of the brief. We have
oh no, in-app purchases are not the Nintendo way. We that's not fun.
I think
what's fun is playing 2 free levels then charging you $10. That's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, like for example, I don't know, like with the Nintendo Switch. I mean, why do you need 2 different color lines? Why don't you just make it all multicolored?
I don't know.
They
make weird decisions. They make a lot of weird decisions.
I mean, some of those people up like when they had some of the third party, they had one guy who really didn't say. It was after the Sega guy. I forgot what the company he was with, but he didn't really say anything about the games they're releasing. Just made like we're gonna integrate play modes. It's like it was just very vague. There wasn't anything there. If they already knew what they were going to say ahead of time, why have them on?
Yeah, it felt like, and this goes with the online service. It felt like there's a lot of things they're not ready to announce yet. That they're still like. I wonder if there's, and you sort of touched on this in the show, Roger. I wonder if there's a lot of confusion and indecision because of a lack of decisive leadership.
Because it definitely feels like no one just said, "Okay, no, we're doing this."
Yeah.
Right.
No, I think you may have nailed it there. And
I didn't want to dwell too on it because
it's
pretty sad.
I feel bad for Nintendo because it is an incredible company that has really struggled a lot to find its place in this world.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, the hardest thing. I know they're Nintendo fanboys and everything like that, but I used to be a huge Nintendo fanboy, and then they got swallowed by PlayStation and Xbox, and they just never were able to fight back.
Well, and I always think they were fighting the last war. I mean, that's that's kind of the thing that foreign policy specialists say about militaries. They always plan for the last war. I think Nintendo was still playing the game that playing the market that they used to be in, and Xbox, or at least under Spencer, kind of pushed forward with like online. Sony reluctantly followed them, but they caught up very quickly.
Well,
right?
I also think that people love Mario, they love Zelda, but it's enough already. It's like, give me something totally new.
I love Zelda. I think the Legend of Zelda franchise, and I haven't actually played every single game, but I just love that franchise. I am excited about playing Breath of the Wild, but I totally get what you're saying, which is like, okay, always love a new Mario, loves Legend of Zelda, but you gotta give me more than just that.
Right. Well, it's like I looked at the lineup of games. It's like Zelda, Mario Kart. I'm like, really? It doesn't get you excited about it.
Like, I love chicken, but when I made my stir fry last night, I put some vegetables in and I made some rice. I didn't just serve chicken.
So this is the crux. I mean, you see it in other non-video gaming franchises like comic books and stuff, where they just reuse the same iconic characters over and over again, and they'll change facets about them, but what you really want is like new IP, new characters that will stand alongside the Marios, the Links, to kind of build out. Because right now it's like, okay, you're relying on this. Like, where's Samus? Where is Metroid? I mean, that's something.
Those were part of that world too. Where's I mean, you could bring Simon Belmont and Castlevania back in.
I mean, that's Konami, but I mean, they could totally.
Well, especially since Konami's gone belly up.
Yeah. Right. Why not? Why not just grab that? I mean, that to me reminds me of old school Nintendo.
Come on.
Right.
Well, it's New Donk City.
New Donk City. We're all going to take a ride to New Donk City.
Honestly, I thought that was one of the worst names they could come up with.
Donkey Kong or New Donk City?
New Donk City? Come on.
There are people out there that love it, and then there's people that hate it. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I'm like, what is this New Donk City thing? Like, what is
because
that?
The world kind of resembles Crazy Taxi a little bit to me. Like
it's weird. It's really strange. It's a very strange, it's very strange to say the least.
They just need to ramp up the number of titles, and the problem is the last time they did that, at least on the Wii U with third party, all they got was shovelware, just crappy.
They don't
titles.
have the third party relationships to lean on that, so they have to do it internally, and it's not happening for whatever reason. And again, I think Roger has nailed it. It is rule by committee happening, and that's why you look at that hardware platform. That hardware platform is tight. It is a good hardware platform. That is exactly what Nintendo needed to do after the Wii U. The Wii U was wrong. This is right. This actually does what Nintendo does best, which is take the hardware in a different direction than the big consoles are taking, so that there is an advantage to it, even though they don't have all the titles. But they're relying too much on that because their strategy, which is like title release and all of that, seems to be in disarray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this was evident a couple years ago at E3 when Nintendo didn't even bother showing up. They just sent a video. And then, that was, to me, that was like the start of like the end for Nintendo.
But they've been doing that for a while. To me, that's just more them trying to be a little bit more Apple-like.
Or financial. I looked at it as a financial decision. I said,
maybe
they don't want to travel out
cash,
there.
Though.
Well, it
sent the wrong message, I guess. As a consumer, I said, I see Xbox and PlayStation, and I mean,
honestly,
Xbox and Sony.
if they do that same move and they have like an incredibly successful console release, I don't think you feel that way. I think it has more to do with the fact that the Wii U is like, really, you're not even there, and this is your big announcement,
right? And I'm not seeing any. I mean, I would like to see. For Nintendo, personally, just because I love the company and have a long history with them, I would love to see another great thing like the Wii, like the Wii announcement. How excited everybody was for that, that lives up to the hype. And the other thing I was just thinking last night, I am missing games like a BioShock, like the original BioShock, not in Nintendo just general, but just in gaming in general.
Well, that's what you're saying is you're missing a new, fresh IP, and this is my beef against Marvel and DC is that you have a different Captain America, but it's still a Captain America, and only now have they started pulling from their back catalog of characters that they've had, and they have a really deep one. They just never really use them, right? Like people would be surprised if you found out that after the original Captain Marvel died, he was replaced by one that was an African American woman. But that's totally skipped over because Miss Marvel, or not Miss Marvel, Is it Miss? Yeah, is it Miss Marvel? Yeah, Miss Marvel became the new Captain, not Captain America, Captain Marvel, and so it was just. I mean, they have such a deep pool, and it's always frustrating when they just pull. Oh, here's a variant of Spider-Man. Right, here's Spider Gwen.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, I get it.
That's what I'm seeing in video games in general. That's why I think I've kind of gotten out of video games, is because there isn't anything that's so exciting. I was remembering playing BioShock for the first time and thinking, boy, that's just an incredible game, just on all levels, just a really great game.
I loved BioShock. I loved BioShock 2, even though BioShock 2 was just warmed over BioShock.
Right.
BioShock 3 was very disappointing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I remember talking to Cesar, and he was over the moon like a cow. And just imagine that.
Nothing has ever matched. I guess the closest thing that's sort of matched it was the Arkham's games.
Arkham was good. The last one, was it Arkham Knight?
Arkham Knight, yeah.
I was playing that, and I liked it, but it just felt like another installment of the same Arkham
yes,
City game.
It did, only with a better system, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's so much money is being poured into these games that everyone, like what Tom was saying, it's like it feels like certain things are done by a committee because there's so much money at stake.
Well, have you been to a GameStop lately? Have you walked in there? They're terrible.
They're horrible.
I tweeted out that it's like pop culture vomited in here. Because it's like everything and I'm not seeing anything that's exciting at all.
Nothing sticks out. It really feels like it feels like a store it feels like Blockbuster on its final years.
Yes.
But if you cram in the gaucheness of Spencer's and Hot Topic with video games.
Well, there's like you can get a SanDisk little USB thing here is shaped like Zelda. And then
it's like $50.
It's like why is this here? Where and then the TVs and it's a small store and there's so much crap here that doesn't mean anything. Like Funko, I love Funko, but I don't want Funko in the store. What does it mean to me to get Funko here?
Well, because GameSpot is trying to transition to a post-buying physical video games world. That's
right.
Why.
They're on their last legs too.
They don't expect you to stick around if you're not into that stuff. They're trying to keep the other people.
Tried that too. I remember buying a lot of toys from EV Games because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to shift. We're not just going to be video games. We're going to sell the action figures.
Yeah.
We're going to sell all this kind of nerd pop culture stuff. It didn't save them.
But here's the problem. We don't see those kinds of stores right now for a reason. People don't go and buy. People open comic book shops and then sell those sort of things. Those are sidelines to other main enterprises. You can't make that your main enterprise.
Yeah.
It would be smarter for GameSpot to just become a chain of comic book shops, honestly.
Yeah, comic book stores don't really make a lot of money either.
No, they're done for love, not money.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, they're like record stores, right?
Yeah.
Like they're still around, but there are a lot lot of them.
And they're mostly independent because it's somebody who really cares.
Yeah. You have to be into it. You can't do it. You're not going to be a rich person running one of those stores, but you do it because you love that.
You will be beloved though in the community.
Yeah, totally. Well, unless you're really rude.
Yeah. Here in Cleveland, we had a good comic book shop. So.
Yeah, we do too. Actually, we have a really good one here. All right, thanks everybody for watching. It was a great show. It was a great time. Don't forget, we're off for Monday, so there'll be just a short headline show in your feed, and then back with full episodes on Tuesday. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day.